Hey everyone, it's time to take a look at some more games running on the 2016 MacBook Pro. Today we're going to take a look at some of the more popular MOBA games out there. The games we're going to play this time are Heroes of the Storm, DOTA 2, SMITE, and League of Legends. All four of these games have Mac versions available, so this time around we're going to be playing them all under macOS. First up is Heroes of the Storm by Blizzard. This is the newest of the games that we're going to take a look at today. It came out in 2015. The first thing I want to point out is that I'm using the OpenGL 2.1 render API. I tried running it with Metal, but I couldn't get the game to start. It kept crashing, there were graphical glitches, it just doesn't seem to work, which is probably why it's tagged as beta. Everything else I pretty much set to the high settings, post-processing to medium, and a few other settings I just turned off. This seemed to be the best balance.
You dare come to Cursed Hollow? Amusing. If you desire victory, you will gather tribute in my name. Be the first and receive my blessing. Your enemies.
Now, full disclosure, I've never played any of these games before today, so you're going to see me play really badly and probably die a lot.
You had better press your advantage.
I've got to say though, after spending a few hours with these MOBA games, I can see why people like them, and I'm probably going to play them again in the future. All four of these games are free to play, and they provide a lot of entertainment for not having to spend any money.
Prepare yourself for battle.
Now this is a practice match with 5v5, and I just chose this to kind of give you an idea of what a normal game would play like. So this is what the graphics look like on the settings I chose. It looks pretty good. You could probably run it at 1080p without a problem, but I found it actually looked better on the MacBook screen at this 1440 by 900 resolution, but maybe that's just me. In smaller battles like this one, the frame rate stays pretty steady, somewhere between 45 and 50 frames per second, which is completely playable for a game like this.
Heroes hiding in bushes are invisible to enemies outside. Heroes become visible if they leave, or if an enemy enters the bush they're hiding in.
First blood. Choose a talent. You have been slain.
Once more stuff starts showing up on screen, we can see the frame rate will start to dip into the low 40s or even the high 30s. I never saw it drop below 30 frames per second though, and you always have the option of dropping the detail settings down a bit.
Double kill. Triple kill. One kill. Mega kill. Killing spree.
Overall, this game is very playable and looks pretty good on this 13-inch MacBook.
Gather tribute. Victory.
Next up is DOTA 2 from Valve. This game is a little bit older, having come out in 2013, but it's actually based on a much older game mod for Warcraft 3. Despite being older, this game has some pretty high graphics requirements. I also noticed some weird glitches in the Mac version, like a comically oversized pointer when I chose any resolution other than 1440 by 900. For this game, I basically chose to take a preset that was one step up from the fastest setting, so you could probably call it medium. I thought this maximum frames per second slider was a nice touch. It lets you stop your MacBook from getting too hot by limiting the frame rate. Now, while I've never played this game before, I do remember playing the old DOTA mod for Warcraft 3, and this feels very similar, but it looks a lot better.
Granted.
In an area like this without too much going on, you can see we get pretty close to 60 frames per second.
I accept your guidance.
Once you get a few more characters and spells on the screen, the frame rate does drop to the mid-40s, but that's about as low as it goes. If you prefer to play at 60 frames per second, dropping some of the settings down to low should let you do that.
Strike. Ah! Oh! I fight.
There's really not much else to say about this one. You can go ahead and watch me die a few more times here in a bunch of different scenes, but you'll see that the frame rate stays roughly the same at about 45 to 50 frames per second.
Granted.
Top is missing.
We find corn for you. Curses! Beat you like a drum. Aye. Does it please you? The bones are thrown. No mana.
Your top tower is under
For the
attack.
ancestors. So say the spirits. I join the great.
Top is missing.
Now let's take a look at SMITE by Hi-Rez Studios. This game was originally released in 2014, but the Mac version didn't actually come out until the middle of 2016. I found this game performs best by turning pretty much everything to the medium setting. One thing that's different about this game is the perspective that you play from. This also means that the camera is at a lower angle, so the game has a much higher draw distance with a lot of background objects. When there's not much going on, the frame rate holds steady somewhere in the mid to high 40s, and like the other games, it drops down a bit once you get into some bigger battles. Some of the weird frame rate dips, like this one you just saw, are actually happening in-game. They don't happen too frequently, but when they do, it's a pretty jarring experience. I tried turning down some of the graphics settings to see if that made a difference, and while the average frame rate improved, the hitches still happened.
Your team has destroyed a little enemy phoenix. You have slain an enemy.
Overall, this game plays reasonably well on this MacBook. Other than the occasional stutter, the frame rate holds pretty steady. I don't think the graphics look fantastic, especially considering the frame rate that I'm getting, but overall the game is still enjoyable. And last but not least, we have League of Legends by Riot Games. This one is probably the most popular of the games I've looked at, and it's also definitely the oldest. It came out in 2009. Now because of that, this MacBook should easily be able to handle this game, so I've chosen the high preset to see what that's like. Since this is another game I've never played before, I've just decided to do a practice match to give you an idea of what a real game would play like.
We're on the right path.
You can see that at the high preset we're getting a very high frame rate. It's going over 100 frames per second in places. Like all the other games I've looked at, this one does drop the frame rate a bit once some more characters get on screen, but it does still stay in the high 70s and 80s.
Let's see how close they can get.
Use a recall spell to
the thrill you. We must press on.
An ally has been slain.
Only one shot. Right in the eye.
You have slain an enemy.
So because the game really never dropped anywhere close to 60 frames per second, I decided to go ahead and turn it to the highest preset.
By dealing the killing blow on minions.
You
The average frame rate drops a little bit at the highest preset, but you can see that the game still manages to stay above 60 frames per second virtually all the time. I'd say that this MacBook Pro has no problem playing this game on the highest graphics settings. You could probably even crank up the resolution a bit if you didn't mind playing at a slightly lower setting or lower frame rate.
I will unite the Freljord.
Like all the other games, this one is perfectly playable on this computer. The graphics obviously aren't as impressive as some of the newer games, but I find the style still looks pretty good, and being able to play it at the highest settings at a good frame rate also helps. Well, I hope you enjoyed that look at some of these MOBA games running on this 2016 MacBook Pro. Be sure to click the like button if you enjoyed this video, and leave any other game suggestions you have in the comments. I've got lots more to come, so stay tuned, and thanks for watching.